This isn't a story about a guy who kept running around the streets and trying to sleep with everything that moves. It's about a successful man in his mid-40s in London who's trying to change his success and also behavior with women. He was struggling to overcome the approach anxiety, but when he was able to start a conversation with a girl, it wasn't going anywhere. And on top of that, he had quite a few negative beliefs about women, even though he didn't even realize that. He had quite high dating standards and he could actually meet decent girls, but the problem was as soon as he dated someone who's very beautiful and accomplished, he went into full simp mode, which sooner or later led to a disaster. This is a story about how he again started approaching, learned day game, and met a wonderful Ukrainian woman half his age. We will look at how he did it, the struggles he had to go through, and also the lessons he learned from the big mistakes he made, which eventually are setting him up for his long-term goal, starting a beautiful relationship with an amazing girl in the future. He's going through my online coaching program, so you could also call this a testimonial. The interview is audio only as usual to preserve the privacy of my guests. So let's jump in. Hey, so let's start with a bit of background information about you, so guys have like an understanding of who are you so give us a short version of who you are, where you're located, and things like that.
Sure. So I am based in the UK, in London. I'm my late 30s, early 40s, and my ethnicity is South Asian. But I grew up in London, and I'm an entrepreneur.
Okay, so what was your dating experience like? 'Cause you had a very specific issue you wanted to solve, so maybe let's start with that.
Yeah, so for me, it's always been I would typically get into a relationship with the first person that I connect with. And then typically that would last for a few years, couple of years, and then just go sideways. And then I would be left again in a big mess trying to get myself back together, and then the whole cycle would repeat. So my history has typically been related to that, where I get really into the person that I connect with, that I'm dating with. I tend to, make them really important, lose myself in relationships. So that's typically been the history.
And at least I know this about the last girl you were seeing, the one that we're going to talk a little bit later, but I understand your bar for someone you're seeing is very, very high. You're sort of demanding. You like beautiful women that are educated, sort of we can call them classy. Is that correct to kind of throughout your past, or was that just the last one you were dating?
No, I think that has been very true for my past. And the moment they meet the certain criteria that I have is in terms of, obviously, I need to find them attractive, them being very educated, because that's something that I value. So once they meet these 3 or 4 things on my checklist, I immediately go into the relationship mode where I need to, have a relationship with them. So that's been the same thing with pretty much all my exes.
We could say that as soon as that happens, you realize how amazing they are, and you really, really, really put them on a pedestal. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, no, that would be 100% accurate, because the moment I realize that, I start pulling out all the stops in terms of, going to the best places, going on amazing holidays, getting them whatever they want. They don't even have to think about it, right? Or if we are going somewhere along the street and they say, I like this, and the next thing I would just get them that stuff, right? So yeah, that's been the general history so far, which obviously working with you, I realize it's not the most ideal.
Yeah, so... And then you started daygaming. You signed up for the online coaching program. It used to be called Private Community back in the day. And then we started working together, but you signed up without fully trusting me. So maybe let's start with why that was the case, because you had some things in the past that made you kind of distrust this industry in general.
Yeah, absolutely. So initially, even for me, it's signing up for the online community was... it wasn't a big deal for me in terms of just signing up. So I was like, yeah, I'm just going to try it out. And I generally have a distrust of this industry because I'd done a boot camp a while ago. And that experience wasn't the best because it was just some guy coming and telling me go and approach a woman, right? And charging thousands and thousands of dollars for that. So for me, the whole idea was most of the people in this industry, they're not even competent, right? So for me, when I joined with you, I liked the content you were putting out in terms of being positive and things like that. But still, initially, when I was working with you, I was still very skeptical in terms of, should I actually implement what he's telling me, right? So I would pick the things that would resonate with me, which I thought would work, and the rest I would just not do it, right? So yeah, initially I was generally distrusting of going all in.
Yeah, so you basically took the bits and pieces that you liked, and then you were like, okay, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to do what makes sense to me. And a lot of people are like that. A lot of people are like that. What were the biggest kind of things you had resistance towards that you didn't really do?
I think it was the most difficult things that I was having resistance towards. So following the model, yes, it's fine. It's very structured. You can learn the model, you know what to do. But things like the key things that stood out to me was firstly, I was facing a lot of approach anxiety, right? So for me, I would go out, and if I do two approaches or three approaches in my mind, I've done brilliantly, and that's great. But your feedback always used to be is do at least 7 to 10 in a session because that's when the real results come. And I just completely ignored this. I was like, yeah, two is as good as seven, right? But the moment I started doing this, things changed a lot for me in terms of getting more stronger leads, getting more numbers. So that was like one of the key things. The other thing was also around following your ideas on how to actually improve with storytelling is the work that you are doing later on. You're going, what you're listening to in sets, going and writing your own stories and coming up with that, right? And not trying to just improv in the moment. So that was the other thing. And the other key factor was at different stages, you would know where I will hit a wall. For example, around the 30 to 40 set mark, you were telling me you will hit a wall where you'll become very robotic. And that's what happened. And the advice was, change up the stack or use something else. And for me, it was like, no, I don't need to do that. I'm fine doing whatever I'm doing. And that continued until 50, 60 sets. And the moment I changed it, things again changed, right? So at that point, it was mostly for me around trusting, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. I need to trust him. And you're able to anticipate where I'm going to face problems. And now I'm like more open to following that.
So, what made you change the view about, in the beginning, you were taking bits and pieces and only doing what you think you should do and ignoring the rest? And what made you really start listening to what I'm telling you to do and do it exactly as I was telling you to do it?
I think firstly, it'll have to be the results as well, but also before the results, it was also in terms of my beliefs, right? Coming in, uh, I didn't have, I thought I didn't have red pill beliefs, but speaking to you, speaking to the other guys in the community, I realized that I did have a strong element of that, right? So for me, it was taking a deeper look at that in terms of what I'm consuming, the content I'm consuming, and things like that. So once I started doing that, started listening to the community, that really helped in terms of, okay, so I had a blind spot around red pill beliefs, which I thought I didn't have, but these guys clearly showed me that I had that, right? I think that was the key turning point for me. The other thing was around, when you're out on the streets, it's so important to remain positive, right? Like, how can you bring your own vibe up? And you keep talking about that. And for me, the moment I stopped looking at red pill content and things like that, it just became easier to be more positive, to be more happy, even if I'm getting a rejection, not being too angry about it. So I think that's when, I started listening 100% that I need to do what he's telling me.
What was the thing that, because you had I know your answer is very interesting and simple, because you said you didn't see that you have a lot of red pill beliefs. And then what was the thing you did to get rid of your red pill beliefs and become more positive?
Yeah, so this was because I was doing something in the community which you didn't like, and then you called me out in front of everyone, right? And then later and privately,
Yeah, I do that. I call out people publicly. There's no, subtleties.
Yeah, and then privately you told me, it's like, you need to stop this. And then I asked you, how do I actually stop this? And the advice was, it sounds really simple, but it worked, is around, firstly, we all driven by algorithms in terms of what we are consuming, right? So the idea was, even if you don't believe in red pill, if like I was consuming content just to look at it in the sense like, this is so stupid, this is so silly kind of thing, right? And your advice was, don't even do that, don't even look at that. And the moment I stopped that, my feed completely changed, right? So I was not being bombarded with all this negative thing that's happening. And yeah, so it was as simple as that. Within a week, my feed was completely clean and my mind was, more in a more positive direction.
And then you started listening to what I told you to do, and pretty soon, what was the big victory that happened?
Yeah, so fairly soon after that, met this amazing person through Daygame, and then started dating her. And yeah, that went on for a bit before it went sideways again because
Very
of my
far sideways,
history
sideways.
and how I handle things. So now I'm obviously working with you in terms of a bit more related to dating and relationships and how do I actually deal with those as those things come up. But yeah, so working with you got me my first Daygame Lay as well. So yeah.
Um, so can you tell us shortly a little bit about the girl you met, just so guys understand how, top shelf she was?
Yeah, so I've explained a bit about myself, and just so that guys understand. Even in terms of height, I'm shorter than 5'8", right? So I'm shorter than your average guy. So this woman that I was dating was a Ukrainian woman, less than half my age, and just ticks all the boxes. Taller than me as well, absolutely gorgeous, very well spoken. So yeah, it wasn't just. Like I would never have access to such a woman on a dating app or anywhere else, right? So Day Game's the only place where I could have access to such a person.
And how did the first date go? How was the escalation and things like that?
Yeah, so on the first date, again, I was getting a lot of support from the community in terms of how to approach this. And she was very clear that, she's just looking for a relationship and she wouldn't even like kiss or do anything physical with anyone that she's not in a relationship with. Right. So that was the messaging. And on the first date, again, for me, I was trying to follow the model as well. But again, due to my past history as well, I was doing few other things. But yeah.
And yeah, the first date ends with nothing. She's clearly only looking for a relationship, but then you have a second date, which I understand was at your place. What was the plan there, and what happened there?
Yeah, so the second date was actually a mix of going out as well and then coming back to my place and cooking together as well. And yeah, so it was again following the model, taking the feedback from the community, and that just ended up in us sleeping together, and it was a great night.
Turns out, one of the lessons I think is that women can say one thing and then do something completely else. But so that this isn't just a rosy story, and so it's not like overly, before and after, oh my God, and everything changed, because that's not really the story, because there were some big lessons that you had to learn from this experience with this amazing Ukrainian girl. So what were the biggest things that happened there? What were the biggest maybe mistakes you made, and what are the takeaways you had from that experience?
So I think the biggest thing for me would be around again. So I was just beginning in terms of getting results, right? And one of the things that happened was initially in terms of my age, I had told her that I'm much younger than I am as well. But as things progressed, I felt that's probably not the right thing to do, and but it had got to a point where we had got to know each other well and we were seeing each other quite a few times and like on like a daily basis as well. And yeah, so I think that was one of the biggest issues, because when I came back saying my actual age and stuff, it was uh it was me coming out as a liar, right? Which is obviously a problem. And so I think not being honest was one of the key things. And the second thing would be going with what she wanted. She wanted a relationship. And at this stage, I joined the community and day gaming is because I don't want a relationship. But the moment I had this beautiful woman, I lost all sense of what I actually wanted. And I was going along with the plan. So I think those were the key things, is not being truthful and not going with what I wanted.
I just wanted to clarify, when you joined the program without not wanting to be in a relationship, it doesn't mean that you wanted to kind of sleep with everything that moves. Your idea was to kind of unlearn these past behaviors that you have and then build a relationship from a stronger, with stronger fundamentals. I just wanted to clarify here just so that it's clear for everyone. And what was the advice that I gave you about coming out about your real age, which you didn't listen to?
Yeah, so again, as I come up with more challenges, I typically ask you or the community, and the feedback was very simple. It's like, don't treat it as a big deal. Just tell her it is what it is, and just move on. But I did the exact opposite, because in my mind it was such a big thing. It's like, I'm such a horrible man. I lied to this woman and kind of thing. So I made it a big deal, and so everything went sideways because it became a big deal because I made it a big deal. But the advice from you was, just don't treat it as a big deal. Just say, yes, it happened, whatever, and move on, right? Which I think would have been the absolutely right approach in this case.
Yeah. So right now you went out, you day gamed, and you got a date with this beautiful girl, and you were hanging out with her a little bit. You did, as guys heard, you did fall back into your old, let's call them simping behaviors, but you understand that, it's normal to kind of slide back and then understand that and then get back on a horse and start learning how things actually work. And so what is your plan going forward in terms of working on your dating life?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, it's very easy to fall back into old behavior, especially when you're dealing with very beautiful women, or the kind of women that are beautiful to you. So the plan is simple for me, is I don't want this has happened continuously through my life. So I don't want to be in a situation where it happens again with a woman, where I'm losing myself and I'm doing things I don't want to do. The plan is to spend the next, year or so in terms of getting more experience, dating experience with the kind of women that I want, and then looking at serious relationship. Because you're right, for the clarification you did earlier, my end goal is to have a loving, nice relationship with an amazing woman. So yeah, that's the plan going forward.
Great. Thank you very much for doing this. If you like this story, then find out more about my online coaching program and sign up for a free call to understand whether it's a right fit for you. You can find the link in description.